Hello, guys and girls. Welcome to So Interactive TV, and this is another episode of in our series of modern C++ programming. And today we're taking a side mission. Well, side missions are basically detours from the main tutorial, where I feel that I need to explain something a little bit further that takes us away from the main path, or it is something that I missed out in a previous episode or previous episodes. And with that, I feel that before moving on, I better mention something like that. Yeah, so we'll be having plenty of these as we go through this modern C++ programming series, and even upcoming series in different languages and frameworks as we keep rolling out these tutorials. So, in case you haven't watched the first episode, the introduction to modern C++ programming, you can click the link on your screen, and with that you can catch up with the rest of the series, the beginning of the series, and then come back and to this episode and continue further down the line. Yes, so today we're talking about namespaces. We discussed that in our in the main episode. And here I just want to state some things because namespaces are part of C++, they're used a lot, but it's always not things, I mean, for you'll realize as you get used to C++ that not everything is as it seems. And this is one of the things that can really crush you in the foot. Now, here we, and in this case, I want to explain why namespaces should be avoided as much as possible. It's not a performance issue. It's not about anything wrong with it, but basically just the way they're designed, they could cause problems in your code that you didn't expect. But it's quite easy to fix, and even easier to avoid. Avoiding it causes a headache just because of the very nature of it. Now here I have an example. We know about, we've included IOStream. That's just basically to be able to print out this to the screen on our right here. And just to illustrate what we're talking about. So I've created two namespaces. There's this namespace foo, which has a single function that returns an integer, and the function is boo, it returns 10. And I have a second namespace here called bar, which has a function called bar that returns 20. And then I have done using namespace foo and using namespace bar. And then we print all that to our standard out. Now, boo should be equal to 10, bar right here should be equal to 20. And I mean, that's pretty straightforward. We run the code, and as you can see, bar is 10, boo is 10, and bar is 20. Well, nothing wrong with that. Now, it works fine, yes. But what happens if we duplicate this code here? So I'll just duplicate that code, and now we have two functions, one in the namespace foo and another one in the namespace bar. Both have the same names, and we'll set that as something like 30. Now, what do you think will happen if we run this code? We should expect an error. And you can see it says it's an overloaded function. Boo is ambiguous. Obviously, parameters are the same. So the compiler is basically telling us that there are two candidates. We have that bar and foo, but it doesn't know which one to use. And one way to solve this is to simply state here, I say, okay, boo, I want to use, this time I want to use the second one. So I can qualify it that way. And when we run the code, it actually works. So now bool is 30, which is fine. And these problems come in um, often quite a lot, especially when using the namespace stud, because the most common thing is to just say using namespace stud, and then get rid of this. And most people would want to run the code that way as it is, and it works, but using the namespace stud, you get into the same problems. So one way to actually go about it is, if I know I'm guaranteed that in my code there won't be any conflict with that, instead of using the entire namespace, it is more, I mean, it's probably better practice to go with something like this, using standard cout, and then we can actually run the code as it is, and it's quite okay. And that way, you would want to say, instead of saying using namespace foo, you could do the same and say using foo. For example, I can say using uh, fubu in this case. There we go. And then we can also do the same with the other one, using uh, bar babu, and that should actually I mean, get us on our way. I mean, it's always I mean, it's up to you to decide how your code is. But with a bigger code base, sometimes it's good to consider whether you want to use this the using namespace, the entire namespace, or just using sections of it in your code. So with that said, I just thought I'd clear that out of the way. Um, Sometimes in our code, depending on the context, we will be using that. We will be using the full namespace. We will be using just certain tokens depending on what we need to do. So for these videos and more, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on upcoming episodes. This week, we have quite a number of episodes coming out as we continue with our series in modern C++ programming. And definitely, along the way, there will also be quite a number of side missions like this one. So hope you enjoyed it. Put your comments in the description, any questions that you have, and with that, good day. Thank you.